Hey there, friends, and welcome back to another 3-Minute Thoughts. My name is Derek, and in the next 3 minutes, we're going to take a look at Acts chapters 13 and 14. Acts chapter 13 marks a pretty significant turning point in the book of Acts. The church in Antioch, a new and diverse, spirit-filled community of believers, becomes the first congregation to send missionaries. Barnabas and Saul aren't acting on their own initiative. The Spirit speaks, the church fasts and prays, and the first intentional missionary journey begins. For the early hearers, this showed a pretty significant shift. The gospel is no longer spreading just by persecution or chance. Rather, it's moving forward by deliberate mission. As Barnabas and Saul travel through Cyprus and into modern-day Turkey, they discover that preaching to Jews and Gentiles brings very different responses. Some welcome the message deeply, others push back fiercely. This teaches the early church that success in mission isn't measured by popularity, but by faithfulness. Saul, now called Paul, preaches a long sermon in Pisidian Antioch, showing that Jesus is the fulfillment of Israel's story. The key takeaway in all of this for the original audience wasn't the sermon itself, but rather it was the reaction. Jews and Gentiles respond, but jealousy and resistance rise. Eventually, the missionaries are expelled from the region. For the early believers, it became pretty clear where the gospel advances, opposition usually isn't far behind. That sermon that Paul preaches in Pisidian Antioch is one where he starts to draw the lines of connection between Old Testament promise and New Testament fulfillment. The things that Scripture talked about, the things the Jews would have been looking forward to, and how Jesus was the answer to every one of them. Then as we turn the page and go into Acts chapter 14, Paul and Barnabas move from city to city, Iconium, Lystra, Derbe. They're preaching, teaching, healing, and facing both acceptance and hostility wherever they go. In Lystra, the crowds try to worship them as gods one moment, and then they try to stone Paul the next. This wild swing taught the early church something pretty crucial. Public opinion is unstable, but faithfulness to Jesus must be steady. Despite all their hardships, Paul and Barnabas appoint elders in every new church. This tells the early Christians that long-term mission isn't just about evangelism, it's about discipleship, establishing healthy communities with shared leadership. And then comes their return report to Antioch. After months of travel, persecution, miracles, conversions, setbacks, they don't say, "Look what we did." They say, "God opened a door of faith to the Gentiles." Mission is God's work. We're simply the instruments, not the architects. These chapters show the church discovering its global calling, learning that the gospel crosses cultures, meets resistance, and forms new communities. This is the same for you and I today. Be well, friends.